Welcome, everyone. Kevin Carpenter back again with another interview of an upcoming speaker at SwiftCraft. Today, I'm with Anna Beltrami. Did I say that right? I always try to guess the name and have be corrected when I'm wrong.
You said it quite good. Um, I always say to people that are trying to pronounce it, like it kind of rhymes with pastrami. So it's the same
Ah,
intonation. That's not a very flattering rhyme. I don't want people to start calling me Anna Pastrami. It gets very annoying.
I mean, being related to a good couple of. Okay, we're just gonna leave that one alone. I like the rhyming. I like the rhyming.
Perfect. So happy to be here.
Okay. And I appreciate it. So it's kind of interesting. I have to ask, you've been working iOS development for 5, 6 years?
Maths. I'm good with some maths. This type of math. So I started officially in 2017. So that's like almost 7
Oh,
years. Yeah, because that's the first time I started writing. I mean, that's how I count when I started being an iOS developer. When I
right.
first started
Yeah.
writing Swift code. And it's actually something I say a lot to people that I meet, like on Twitter, on X, or around the
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm a wannabe iOS developer, and I always tell them, I'm like, are you writing iOS code? Yeah, I'm like, then in my eyes, you are an iOS developer. So that's why I
You're
count.
an iOS developer. Yeah.
So that's why I count from
Yep.
2017 because that's when I started. I started learning programming to begin with, but that's one of the first things I learned was directly iOS. Well, first a bit of Java, which I really enjoyed, and then iOS development like a month.
I'm sorry.
I I did, but I explained
Sorry.
why. It's
Java's great to drink.
but I explained because my first like lectures because what I did is like I did an undergraduate degree in biomedical sciences, which didn't go too well for me because I'm really clumsy, and in the lab situation, it's just not the best place for me to be in. You'll see if you come to SwiftCraft and you see me in person, I'll trip, I'll knock things over. Like yeah. So I'm a clumsy person. The lab, the lab was not for me. But I don't. So I did a master's degree. Like it was basically like a conversions master's degree that was focused on mobile development. But it
Mhm.
started with like the basics, just very intensive, and immediately we had
Right.
like object-oriented programming module with Java. And I really enjoyed Java just because
Yep.
I before I started this master's, um, I didn't really know anything about computer science, about programming.
Mhm.
On my application,
Oh,
I
wow.
said
Okay.
yeah, so on my application, I said, like it was you didn't have to know any, you didn't have to have any prerequisites, but I did
Right.
write, like, familiar with the HTML because I just meant that I knew what it was. So, anyway,
That's familiar. I know what HTML is. It loads on the interwebs for me, right?
it's just I was like, "It's a thing." So, but then I when I had my first lecture and they explained the basics of object-oriented programming, and I was like, "Actually," I was like, this makes sense because it's a way that like my brain was thinking
Mhm.
some of these things without fully articulating, but without like
Right.
having putting them together in a in an elaborate concept, I guess, like that. So immediately I was like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
this I like, this I can do, this is really cool. So I have like a little
Mhm.
bit of a soft spot for Java because it was my first time that I really felt like, oh my god, like it coincides with what's going on in here, um,
Right.
which was very exciting.
Yeah. So to age myself, my real soft spot was with Pascal, and that was quite a long time ago before object oriented had been invented. So I understand, and I will say, like all languages, I think there's even when I think of interns or volunteers that I work with that come right out of uni, it's like Java is a good language because you can focus on the science part. You can focus on the algorithms because generally speaking, it's like all the languages in the world, it's the same thing. All the languages in computer science, uh, you know, having memory locality or, having something that runs O of N and is constant time, these are things that apply whether you're
True.
using Java, C++, or Swift or Python, et cetera, right? I mean, so but I still have to joke about Java because I mainly write C++. So that's just kind of,
It's
I love all
mandatory.
languages. I do. But, so you've been you've been building iOS apps. So have you always done it in Swift, or what other languages did you do Objective C?
Yes, I did. I liked Objective C a lot too, and this is another controversial opinion of mine that sometimes I say it, people are like, "What on earth?" I love Swift, like I love Swift, but I did work a bit in Objective C, which was in my very first role, like straight out of uni after my master's.
Mhm.
It was an entirely Objective C app, and I hadn't touched any Objective C
Oh wow.
until then. But weirdly, like it was just by
Yes.
reading it, it was very readable. It was very maybe that's another crazy opinion. To me, it felt readable. It felt easy to understand because after a while, I was like, without formally like reading, I was like, okay, square brackets here, semicolons there. It's just like
Yes.
a little bit of a more like expanded version of things that I already know. So when I started to recognize, I was like, okay, actually, this is quite cool. So I did that for the first, like I'd say, year of my career. But what I did at that place, I was like, okay, I love Objective C, but if we have to get more iOS developers here, they're gonna know Swift because this is what people are being taught now. This is what
Right.
Apple is, it wants people to learn.
Mhm.
So I started doing the conversion sadly too, which I think it was like it made sense at the time and it worked out well. Because I think other developers that arrived later were more familiar with Swift, so it made sense. Even though I was like, I feel bad deleting
Mhm.
all this beautiful Objective code and replacing
Objective C code to replace with Swift.
it. No, but it was
Yeah.
fun.
It's kind of funny, because coming from C++, it's like I did learn C, and there is a lot of code written before 2011, before the new standards came out, that just needs to be rewritten. The
Yeah.
whole thing where they talk about memory safety and such. Um, People are not wrong. Like, there's just, we walk off the end of an array and don't even think twice about it in the old code. In the modern code, that's not so much the case. But
Mhm.
uh, but so in that case, I actually like when I can replace any of that old code with new, more modern stuff. But so your talk is build a binary, which which is really cool to me because since like I said, I come more from C++. Building binaries is something I do every day. Our build tools are important. So what
Mm.
does that look like in X, because I've built some stuff in Xcode. I know C++ compilers, but what is that? Is it vastly different between like Swift and Objective C? Is the process?
So the process. Okay, one little parenthesis before I go. Like I have actually realized I've named my talk a little bit misleading because we're not actually going to build a binary together in the talk. I
Mhm.
said it. I named it
Okay.
because I wanted it to be like build a bear, but build a binary. And then I realized,
That's
yeah, that
awesome.
was
My kids love Build-A-Bear, so we're there.
I've never been. That's the original premise of the talk is like, okay, I'm gonna explain how Xcode builds, like your from goes from your code to
Yep.
a runnable application, and I'm gonna theme it around Build a Bear. And then I thought, I've never been to Build a Bear, so let's just, keep the title. The theme. But it actually, you will see the talk still looks like it's very. I picked a very childish UI for it just because like I like it, and I was like,
Mhm.
would be fun to talk about something really serious that people get really worried and scared to even
Right.
think about, but to make it like a children's book. So that was my my objective.
Mhm.
So we're not actually going to be doing any of that, but I will go through pretty much yeah what happens, and but what happens
Mhm.
from point of view of the Xcode build system, like what that is, what is a build
Okay.
system. Because I found that even before I joined my current role at Spotify, I didn't know anything. I was like, I press the button, title the cross, and I hope I get what I
Yeah.
want of later at the
Yeah.
end. I'm not even exaggerating. It was literally it. So I think it's like sometimes by
No,
finding out
I know. I think we've all been there, so it's okay.
good. So
Sorry, I
that's
didn't mean to talk over, but yeah, I think we've all been there.
yeah. And I still sometimes like even though I know what's going on, I'm kind of like, let's see what happens. But yeah,
Yep.
so about the process behind the scenes. And Objective-C and Swift actually are very similar up to like a certain point. There's like, I think, one extra step for Swift where you have this thing called the Swift intermediate language. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's like a few extra things in Swift. But pretty
Yep.
much like from the beginning until the end, they go like everything goes hand in hand together. And like, of course, like in the build process, like things get transmitted from one format to the other, from one thing to the other, until like I think after the first few steps, they're pretty much the same, and then they continue together. This is making sense in my mind, but I don't know if I'm explaining it well. It's like a factory line. They come from two different sources, but afterwards they will get
Yep.
the same, get put into a tin.
Yep.
That was a metaphor I was going for. I don't know if it will. By the way, sorry, because I
Nice.
realize you can see Gordon
So
Ramsay in the
you
back. Ignore him. He's there just because I forgot to move.
Hey, that's okay. That just means you're working on being a great cook too, which my wife greatly appreciates that I actually took over cooking. So, it's all good. We have to be
Nice.
programmers. We have to be more than just programmers. We actually have to eat something besides pizza too,
Yeah, especially
right?
now I'm trying to reduce carbs. So, what's your favorite thing to cook? Now I'm curious. Sorry, I know you were supposed to ask me questions, but I'm
So, no, this can go both ways. So my wife is vegetarian, and during the pandemic, I grew up eating meat, but during the pandemic, I learned to cook Indian food a lot more. So we do lots of masalas with chickpeas and lots of dal with lentils. And recently, I found the quick and dirty hack for making. Um, I don't want to say naan because I don't use a tandoori oven, but basically it's like a 1-to-1 of a self-rising flour and plain yogurt. And you mold it up, set it in the pan, and you can throw in all the spices you want with it, some cheese with it. You just fry it up in the pan, and it's just, yeah, beautiful.
yeah.
So it's
That is
it's funny because aside from coding all day on what I do, yeah.
but like sometimes programming is a little bit like cooking. If you follow the recipe, you're like following a set of instructions. I think it's two things that in a weird way they go hand in hand quite a lot, maybe in some points of
Yes,
view. But that thing you
that's
just said, you're making this like what the flour and yogurt bread. I've tried something like that in the past. It's amazing. So everyone that's watching this, make it. It's good.
there. So if you're not coming for the Swift, you're coming for the cooking. We got you covered on both sides.
Hey,
So
great
I got to
one.
ask about Spotify because, sorry, I have to say we got a little lag, and I apologize to anybody watching, but we'll work through it. Um, Spotify, the
Yes,
number one time used app I think that I have. How do you
same.
like working with them?
It's really cool. Like I think when I first joined, I was a bit afraid because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be working on something that not only a lot of people use, but that I use very extensively. And I've
Yeah.
used actually apps
Yes.
that I work on. I try and of course like use them myself, but Spotify especially I was like, this is not just an app for me. This is like an essential of my daily life. But it's like I try to,
Absolutely.
fix my own car, and I don't know if I would trust myself to fix my own car. But fortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, I'm working in a team that is a little bit far away from the consumer app, and instead we're working on developer experience and developer tools. So our customers are not
Ah, right.
everyone or me, it's like other developers of Spotify. And
Right.
that's kind of why I decided to go for this talk because it's something that before I joined Spotify and I joined this team, I had no idea about. And since we've been here, we've like
Mhm.
a big part of my work has been to work with Basil, to work on generating an Xcode project with Basil using certain things. And so yeah, so I was like, it would be cool to talk about something that I've recently had to explore because otherwise, without knowing what was going on, it would have been really
Right.
hard to work with it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But it's really cool. I like it. There's so much cool stuff here. We had like of course, like besides the actual work, which is great, it has been fun. We had like a really cool a really cool party last year in London where we had like
Oh, yes.
Craig David playing and Stefflon Don, and I really like this kind of music, so it was really, really fun. And it's always like a very cool environment. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it there.
That's cool. Well, I have to say, like, I was looking forward to interviewing you, especially when I saw you work for Spotify. I'm like, oh, I get to get some good tips. But listen, we're wow, it's May 1st, so a little bit less or right at 3 weeks away from the start of SwiftCraft. You got
That'll
your
be good.
slides done, right?
Yes, fortunately, I have to actually. I had a thought. It was like maybe I can change a couple things, but I think I need to stop touching everything because the thing is like I've given this talk before, but I've added a bit more important things. A bit more important. That's not English, is it? I've added a few more important things I thought like, I really needed to add, and I wanted to explain. And what ended up happening every time I've tried to give this talk in the past is that because there's just so much to talk about, I always had to rush
Yeah.
the ending, which is I think my favorite part. But I'm really glad because here I have a whole hour slot, so I can fill it up.
Yes.
And to whoever would like to come
Yep.
to my session, please come. Even if it sounds like, oh my god, do I want to hear about like Xcode build system for an hour? We're gonna have a lot of fun. I hope that's like what I hope it's gonna be. And um, and if anything, I hope you can laugh because what happens is the more anxious I am, the funnier I am. And because I'm really anxious about giving a talk again, I hope it's gonna be funny. So yeah, that's pretty. I didn't sell it very well, did I?
You sold it perfectly because I'm looking forward to it. So
But
and in Folkestone
you
at least Cliff Hall, like the venue, I really love it. It's got this old fashioned this older charm and it's so I say hidden because like when I have volunteers come, it's like I'm walking them towards this coffee shop and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have a couple hundred people here to do a conference. And for people who've never been there, they're just kind of looking at me like, what are you talking about? And then you walk in and the stairs go down and I keep saying that in every video because everybody knows like it is one of my favorite venues to go to be at. So 3 weeks, I look forward to seeing you there. And
yeah,
I look forward to catching at least part of your talk. If I'm not too busy helping with anything else in the conference, I will definitely be dropping in.
amazing. I'm super excited. Also because I haven't been to Folkestone in quite a while. I went once like when I was at uni because I went to uni in the area in Kent. So I've been to Folkestone years ago and I remember it's so beautiful there because you have the sea first of all, which is stunning. Some parts
Yes.
of it, if I remember, almost look and people are gonna think I'm crazy, but people already think I'm crazy. But part of it looks almost Mediterranean, especially in the summer. There's like the
Yes.
vegetation. There's like a beautiful road that winds down from
Yes.
this town, I think, from actually
Yes.
from the town, like down towards the sea, and it's stunning. And there's this like beautiful little street that goes
Yep.
uphill, but it's not too hard to walk on. The Arts Quarter. Have you been to the Arts Quarter? Yeah, it's stunning. It's
Yes.
stunning.
It is. It is.
So it's gonna be
Well, with
really,
that,
really.
Anna, I will give you back the rest of your evening.
Thank you
It
so much.
is.
So great to speak. I can't
Thank you for
believe it.
joining me,
Thank you.
and I will see you in 3 weeks.
Awesome. See you
Have a
soon.
great night.
Bye bye. You too.
Bye bye.